8,
You're watching the
7,
Experience Comic Culture and
6,
Sales.
5,
Streaming live daily
4,
to Facebook, YouTube,
3,
Twitch, and Twitter.
2, 1.
Hey, everybody. Normally we start the show with a little joke and then I go into things, but today we're going to start something a little different. Former wrestling star Michael Jones, better known as Virgil, passed away at the age of 61, according to his verified Instagram account. They posted that this is to confirm the sad news that our beloved meat sauce god and wrestling superstar Virgil/Michael Jones has passed away. There is so much to say here and would love to share stories, but for now, it's a rough day and our friend is gone. Now, I'm not a huge wrestling fan. I was when I was younger. I was aware of Virgil. I had seen, when I was into wrestling for a little while, he was one of the wrestlers. I appreciated him. But I do have a Virgil story that I thought would be fun to share. I used to travel to different conventions with Tone Rodriguez. We used to drive together there and back and always sat together. And we went to Wizard World Dallas, and Virgil was one of the featured guests. And he had his booth set up right when you walked into the area. There was the stars, and then there was the artist alley behind it, and we were one or two rows after him. And Tone is a huge wrestling fan, and he knows a lot of the guys. So we walk in, and he sees Virgil, and they, hey, Tone, how you doing, brother? And they went back and forth, and I got introduced, and he was a really nice guy, just very friendly, So it was a very pleasant meeting. Like I said, I really don't know him that well, but it was nice. But sometime during the convention, somebody came up to my table and they were super excited. And they had just left Virgil's booth. And they had bought these holographic laser cut dog tags from Virgil. I think they were like $50 a pair. And they had that image of Virgil on there. And this guy was so excited. He was just proud as could be that he had bought these Virgil dog tags. Now, I'm not a big wrestling fan, like I said. And this guy is showing me these dog tags. And I could tell that he's proud of them, that he wants people to go, oh, those are awesome. And I want to say that, but I'm having a hard time because I'm not sure why anybody would want Virgil dog tags. So what I said was, those are awesome. And I paused for just a second. If you like Virgil. So he hears those are awesome. And of course he likes Virgil, so that kind of reinforces it. I'm thinking, job well done, Dan. I have allowed this guy to enjoy his purchase without being a smartass, which is surprisingly hard for me sometimes. So then he moves on to the next booth, and Tone's sitting there, and he shows Tone these dog tags. Now, Tone is a big wrestling fan, like I said. He knows all the guys. It's awesome. And he looks at the dog tags, and he says, hey, those are awesome if you like Virgil. And I just thought that was very funny for us to say the exact same thing. And both times the guy just was beaming. He absolutely loved that we confirmed that he had made an awesome purchase. So rest in peace, Virgil. Like I said, I didn't get to know you well, but you were a very nice guy the time I did talk to you, or the times I did talk to you. And my condolences to his family, his friends, his fans, and the guy out there with the virtual dog tags. Stay tuned for the Dan Wickline Show. Hey everybody, welcome to the Dan Wickline Show here on The Experience. It is Leap Day. It is February 29th, which is awesome. We don't get a lot of those, every 4 years. But we got a good show and we got a good crowd already. We got Triple B, we got Ed, we got Kenneth, Lorena, and Mr. Easy Go Lucky. So good to see you all. Glad you are here. We're going to cover the news and got a little bit of Superman news at the end. Plus, we are going to talk about some ways that I think Sony could turn around the runaway train that is their Spider-Man universe of characters. So, and remember to stick around today because we've got multiple shows going on here. Miss Jen is back from Comics Pro and will be offering up on what's in the box, the variants that she got from Comics Pro, plus some other books that she picked up along the way. So we've got that. Then, of course, we've got Sketch Up is Last with Philip Law and Christy Shin.
Almost there.
Almost there.
Geek Chat.
Geek Chat, yes. Geek Chat will be looking at a lot of the new books this week, including the new Spider-Man number 44, the new Spider-Punk comic, the new Fantastic Four annual. So you got a great lineup today on the show here.
And
somebody's giving away something, aren't they?
That's right. During the Geek Chat, they will be giving away a beautiful copy of Spider-Boy Volume 2, Number 3, the 1 in 100 Ramos variant. So
nice.
That's coming up during the Geek Chat at 8 Eastern.
Yep. But don't duck out now since you don't have to be here till 8 Eastern because you're going to want to hear my ideas for the Spider-Man universe. Plus, I got news. We got news to cover. So stick around, get comfy. Hope you grabbed yourself a drink. I did. I got me some sparkling lime water from Trader Joe's. They're not a sponsor, but they could send me some cases. I'd be very happy. I also like the orange flavor and the clementine one that cranberry clementine. So you can send those over. Thanks. And why don't you do the original, the regular or non-flavored one anymore? I like that one too. All right, let's get into the news. It seems that the Marvel star Brie Larson was asked on the red carpet at the Screen Actors Guild Awards about her future when it comes to playing Captain Marvel again. Now, she was a little blunt about it and said, I don't have anything to say about that, which is kind of interesting, as not too much earlier, she had said, I think there's still much inside of Carol. I feel like getting to be on the team just cracked her open in a way that she hadn't been. I really loved that for her. I just loved her letting the shoulders drop a little bit and not needing to feel like all the responsibility was on her. So I think that there's just so much more to go. So you can tell that from just prior to the movie coming out to its low box office, I guess her confidence in returning as the character may have dipped a little, but I am fairly certain that she's going to pop up in the upcoming Avengers movies. It would not make any sense for her to suddenly be gone. So Triple B says, once he gets home, I'll have a few beers. Good job. Trader Joe's whiskey is surprisingly good. I'll have to check that out. I am a whiskey and scotch drinker. So, all right, moving on. Of course, the next X-Men series, or the next Marvel series coming out, is actually the reboot or the continuation of X-Men 97. And Bo DeMeo, the series head writer and executive producer, was asked if X-Men 97 is going to be MCU canon. And he said, no, we're our own thing. And with the MCU on the brink of integrating mutants, DeMeo's confirmation might surprise some. But if you think about it, it's always been kind of a separate thing. And it would be kind of weird for them to tie in a very old cartoon series to the current MCU. So I think just using the theme song, stuff like that, will be the most it gets. And Marvel Studios has admitted that they will be doing some in-canon and some non-canon animation stuff. Like, What If is canon, X-Men 97 isn't. So, you know, I don't think Marvel Zombies is going to be canon, but we'll see. So, Ed says, I love Trader Joe's in September. The closest one to me is about 60 miles, so don't get to go too often. I heard something interesting I didn't know about Trader Joe's the other day. That you guys know Aldi? Yeah, the Aldi store. Well, they started off, I want to say, in Germany, in Europe at least, and it was two brothers who were running it, and they had an argument after starting the Aldi store. They knew what they wanted to do with Aldi. They wanted to make it where they had low prices on things, quality merchandise, but they didn't buy a lot of different things. So if you were buying mustard, they had one mustard. If they bought, bacon, they had one kind of bacon. So they would spend the money on buying in bulk to keep the price down instead of having multiple choices. That's why it's a smaller store. Well, at one point, the two brothers had an argument, and they decided over cigarettes. One brother wanted to sell cigarettes, one didn't. And so what they did was they split up the stores, and one brother kept Aldi, and the other brother took all his and changed them to Aldi South. And the Aldi South, I think it was, sold the cigarettes, and the regular Aldis didn't. Well, and then they expanded over into the United States. Well, in the United States, you can't have basically two companies with the same name doing the same thing. So you couldn't have Aldi's and Aldi's South and have them be two companies. So basically what happened was Aldi's kept the Aldi's name, and Aldi's South became Trader Joe's. So, hey, Thomas, good to see you. All right, let's move on to a story from my old stomping grounds over at Bleeding Cool. Rich Johnson has a report up saying that DC Comics is hiring, and they're looking for a few different jobs, an editor, an associate editor, and even a custodian, among other jobs. Now, it's interesting that they also have listed the salaries for these jobs, and both the editorial jobs are listed as an annual salary, while the custodial job is actually listed as hourly. Now, if you do the math, and Rich did, he figures out that the associate editor's job would break down to being $18.26 an hour, while the custodian job at DC is $18.55 an hour. So you're making about, 19 cents more an hour? No, 29 cents more an hour? Something like that. So it's close. So you could be cleaning the bathrooms and mopping the floor, or putting out the next Batman comic. Now, I would want to do the next Batman comic because I'm more of an editor anyway. But the real interesting thing is the fact, like I said, that one is salary and one is hourly, or annual salary and hourly, which means, and I don't know if Rich picked up on this not being here in the States, overtime. If you work overtime and you're an hourly employee, you get time and a half. And if you're a salary employee, unless that's changed sometime recently, you normally don't get overtime, or you don't get time and a half, which means that if you put in an extra 5 hours a week, the custodian's going to get paid an extra 18 and a half plus another 9, 9.25, something like that, 9.27 per hour, where the salary guy or the associate editor just going to get his base salary. So, yeah, interesting. All right, moving on over to CBS Studios, and CBS loves their NCIS. I think that they would just change their station to NCIS Studios if they could, and just run nothing but NCIS 24/7. But now, I think they're tired of spinning off into, NCIS Sydney and NCIS, Vegas and NCIS New Orleans and all these different places in LA. What they're doing now, we know that recently they had greenlit the NCIS Origins, which was the story of a young Jethro Gibbs. Well, now they're bringing back Michael Weatherly and Cody DiPablo, who played Tony DiNozzo and Ziva David. And they're going to do this new series. It's been given a 10-episode series order, and they don't have a title for it yet. They're tentatively calling it NCIS Europe, but the idea is that Ziva comes back, and her and Tony are on the run throughout Europe. That's the basic plan. Weatherly and DiPablo will be executive producers, with John McNamara as well, who is also the writer. And you might know him from Trumbo or The Magicians. And I love The Magicians. That was a great series. So, yep, NCIS expanding more and more. You would think all that naval crime. Yeah. This one depressed me a little, this story. And also because I think that this actor's portrayal of his character was one of the major weak points of the movie and brought it down. Now I'm understanding that this might be why. So Ray Winstone, who appeared in Marvel's Black Widow, which came out in 2021, of course, and starred Scarlett Johansson as the titular character, introduced Red Guardian, the new Black Widow, Yelena Belova, all of that. Well, Ray Winstone, who played the villain, was talking to Radio Times, and he basically told them that he hated working on the movie where he played Dreykov. He said, it was fine until you have to do reshoots. Then you find out that a few producers have come down and your performance is too much. It's too strong. That's the way Marvel works. It can be soul destroying because you feel like you're doing great work. Winston, and it went on to say that Winston almost quit the project altogether, saying, I actually said, you ought to recast it because that was it for me. And you end up doing it again because you're contracted to do it. Otherwise, you end up in court and it's like being kicked in the balls. So if you watch Winstone's performance, it's not a good performance. And you have to wonder how much was his first performance and how much was reshoots. And for me, the villains I liked a lot of Black Widow, but I didn't like his performance. He was very one note. I didn't like the twist with Taskmaster, because I think they basically not screwed up, but a very cool character got turned into a gimmick. So it's almost like Marvel doesn't want to use the photographic reflexes idea because they have two characters in the MCU who basically have photographic reflexes, and they changed both of them to not have that power. Echo and Taskmaster. So, all right, we got one more story here, and we have an image for it. So when you get a chance, Jay, put that up. It says, what we have here is an image posted by James Gunn himself of what the logo / chest for the upcoming Superman Legacy, or it appears that the name of the movie may also be changing to just Superman, but I haven't verified that yet. But it is kind of what Gunn seems to be saying in the post. But this logo matches, they had little name cards for everybody who was in the table read, and it had this logo. So to see it now and with Gunn posting it, it's kind of interesting. But the thing is that he also posted that today is the official first day of shooting on the movie, which is fascinating to me because it was slated to start March 18th. So they're starting almost 3 weeks early on the movie. And they're starting on what is technically Superman's birthday. Back in World's Finest number 164 in 1966, it was established that Clark Kent, or Superman, was born on Leap Day, February 29th. Now, I've had some interesting conversations with people about this particular logo. I know it's not the most popular one, the standard S logo. This is more of an alien-looking logo. But I think that it makes more sense for this movie because when you listen to what James Gunn has said, that this movie isn't an origin movie. It's basically a movie about Clark trying to reconcile his human upbringing and his Kryptonian legacy. And it's always struck me as weird, and they kind of played with it a little in Man of Steel, why the House of L logo, which is what this crest is supposed to be, is the letter S. It doesn't make a lot of sense. But if it's not an actual letter S, it just kind of looks like a letter S, it has more of an alien look to it, that makes more sense to me. So I actually like this design. I know Jim Beard, who I do the Pop Go the Writers podcast with on Sunday nights, is not a fan of this one. He would prefer a standard S logo, but to me, this one makes the most sense for the character. So let's see what I have this year. NCS Ultimate Universe. Yeah, my only complaint about Black Widow was they spent too much time on the family reunion, sitting on a bench talking. Okay. And Lorena says, I can't wait. Huge Superman fan. I hope it's good. I do too. But I have a lot of faith in James Gunn. So, yeah. I can dig that logo. Thank you, Ed. That's a go. So, that's the news. We'll be back in just a minute. And we're going to talk about Sony's universe of Spider-Man characters, Marvel characters. I don't know. They got some weird name for it, but we're going to basically call it Sony's Spider-Man universe. So we'll be right back.
Symphonic verses, Nocturne's romance. A song of romanticized darkness, dreaming death by sleep.
Imagine being at a convention and going to an interview panel that's just for you. No bustling crowds, no hours-long lines, just you, the moderator, and your favorite comic book creators. Well, this is pretty much that. Miss Jen sits down every week with 2 comic book creators for a live stream interview about their latest work, and you can ask them whatever you want. It's Talking Shop, Mondays at 5 Eastern on The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales.
Why was Princess Zelda sad after watching a bunch of YouTube videos? She couldn't find a link in the description. We'll stop if you subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's super easy. Click subscribe and click the bell when you do. And thanks for supporting the EXP.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dan Wickline Show here on The Experience. You might be able to tell I've got most of my voice back. I'm not sucking on a cough drop. I can do the pop sound again when Pop Go the Writers comes back on Sunday. I wanted to read to you, by the way, please hit the like, subscribe buttons, tell your friends, get people in here, all the usual stuff that you hear. But I wanted to read the actual post that James Gunn made because everybody is now verifying that the movie title has changed. And what James Gunn wrote specifically is, overjoyed to be announcing the start of principal photography on Superman today, February 29th, which just so happens to be, coincidentally and unplanned, Superman's birthday. When I finished the first draft of the script, I called the film Superman Legacy. By the time I locked the final draft, it was clear the title was Superman, making our way to you July 2025. So there it is. We have the logo, or at least we have the design of Superman's chest logo, and the movie will now be called Superman. So, okay. So let's jump to a different universe, Sony. Now, what is going on with Sony? You know, no matter how you spin it, Sony's in deep excrement when it comes to their universe of Spider-Man characters. The company makes good money off their collaboration with Marvel Studios and their animated Spider-Verse movies. They've both been financial and critical success. But when there isn't a Spider-Man in the lead, things get a bit trickier. Now, they've done financially well with Venom and its sequel, but neither were critical darlings. And then both Morbius and Madam Web are absolute train wrecks. And I think everybody kind of expects Craven to follow suit. So what's going on? Why are they so bad at making films? And what should they do next to get back on track if we're going to follow the train wreck idea? Now, I think the obvious answer that everyone will come up with first is for them to sell the characters back to Marvel and take the big bag of money and move on. Now, this isn't a horrible idea, but it's very short-sighted. See, Spider-Man itself is a highly successful franchise with 8 films, and the last 3, while collaborating with Marvel, have brought in $880 million, $1.13 billion, and then No Way Home brought in $1.9 billion. Now, how much would Marvel have to pay to get the character back? Because, I mean, it almost doesn't make financial sense for Disney to do that because they're going to have to pay through the nose, or they could just keep doing these one-off movies and having them pop up. I don't think it's a viable thing for either company. Let's see. Lorena says that's a good title, simple, direct. That's giving me more hope. Yep. Yeah, I think Superman is just call it Superman. So let's look at Sony's track record, starting with the last 2 amazing Spider-Man films, because those are the last 2 that they made on their own. Now, I know that Amazing Spider-Man 1 with Andrew Garfield was well liked, while the second one wasn't. And it was pretty obvious what was wrong with the second one. Jamie Foxx's Electro character was atrocious. But both of those movies grossed over 700 million worldwide. That means that there is an audience for a live action Spider-Man that is significantly larger than the animated movies, and that people will go see it. Now, the reviews, of course, weren't the best, especially for the sequel. A 51% critic rating and a 64% audience score are kind of weak compared to the 92% critical and 87% audience score for Homecoming. So just when Marvel took over, those numbers skyrocketed. Now, you may think Marvel is going through a rough patch right now. That's arguable. You can, whichever side you come down on, that's fine. But they are still the most consistent when it comes to these type of films. Their worst movies are outperforming some of the better ones for other companies. The Marvels made more than Shazam 2, more than Blue Beetle, more than The Flash. And I don't know how it compares to Aquaman, but so it's kind of like saying that, the worst food at Outback compared to the best food at the hot dog cart on the corner. They're not really comparable. Now, Sony did films for, once after, when Marvel started doing that, Sony started doing films for probably their most popular second character, which is Venom. And both of his films made over 700 million each. So you can dial in right there and say, okay, Spider-Man movies have about a $700 million, budget there, as long as you do a good one and you don't run it into the ground. Now, would they have hit 700 million with a third Amazing Spider-Man? Probably not, unless they introduced Venom, which they could have. So, both of those films were liked by fans, both the Venom films, 88 and 84%. But the critics weren't as happy with it. Did you know the first Venom movie only got a 30% with critics? And the second one, which I thought was the weaker of the two films, actually got a 57% with critics. And a third film is on the way. Now, the interesting thing with that is the director of the film is going to be the writer of the first two. So the writing is being done by the woman who's directing it now, and Tom Hardy for the third movie. So hopefully it'll be good, and they'll get their 700 million again, because Sony really does need some money. They're not doing well. But mostly with Venom, they severed any connection they had with Spider-Man, including removing the Spider-Man logo from his chest. Now he's just kind of this black blobby looking thing. Ed, you're right. The Rhino at the end of Amazing Spider-Man 2 was horrible. Paul Giamatti, geez. It's like, you've won how many acting awards and you're inside a Rhino suit? Okay. Now, since then, Sony has tried to move forward on other Spider-Man adjacent films. Those Silver Sable, Sinister Six, and Black Cat movies have gone absolutely nowhere. And of course, the Bad Bunny starring movie El Muerto is now dead. They did make Morbius, and they made Madam Web, and soon to release Kraven the Hunter. Now, starting with the Jared Leto film, it was released at the end of the pandemic and was starting to people were starting to go back to the theaters, and it still bombed. It opened for a mere 39 million domestically and made only 167 million worldwide. Again, much lower than the Marvels. That was even with the ill-fated re-release. When the fans convinced Sony, hey, we love Morbius, it's Morbin time. And Sony went, hey, we'll put it back in the theater, and nobody went to go see it. And the critics hated the film. It got a 15%. That's not good at all. Now, part of the problem here may be that the studio hired two particular writers. And no, this is not the writer that won't be named, who worked over on Iron Fist and Dresden, not Dresden. One of Michael C. Hall is a serial killer that I was on. The show I was actually a dead body on. Help me out, Jay. Dexter, thank you. So, no, these are two writers named Matt Sazama and Burke Sharpless. Now, previously, they had worked on, check out this list of winners, Dracula Untold, The Last Witch Hunter with Vin Diesel, Gods of Egypt, and the Power Rangers movie, none of which did well critically or financially. And they were hired to do the Morbius movie. Now, it's hard to see why Sony would have hired them in the first place, but the important thing is that afterwards, they've learned their lesson and they're never going to hire them again, right? Wrong. Sazama and Sharpless were hired to write Madam Web. That's right. And they outdid themselves this time by receiving a 12% critical score. It opened for $15 million domestically, and after 2 weeks has only made $77 million worldwide. Now, those two are not working on Craven. That went to writing duo of Art Markham and Matt Holloway, who recently wrote Men in Black International and Uncharted, which doesn't necessarily make me feel better about Craven in any way. But they did work on the original Iron Man movie, so maybe? Ed says, that's so funny to me. My wife and I really liked Morbius. Was definitely disappointed with no Spider-Man, but we watched it twice. I saw something about a new Vin Diesel Witch Hunter movie today. Oh, jeez. Vin needs to just... Never mind. So it's obvious that Sony has no idea what they're doing and how to make a successful interconnected universe with live action characters. So I've come up with some ideas on how to turn things around without them selling the characters back to Marvel and without just Marvel making all the movies. So these are my 5 ideas. Now, the first one, to me, seems like the most obvious, and I'm kind of having a hard time believing that they haven't already taken this route. Now, Sony doesn't want to mess with the success of Spider-Man in the MCU with Tom Holland because, like I said, they get a big chunk of $1.9 billion off of No Way Home, and that's a nice paycheck. But they need a Spider-Man to pull these characters together. And as luck would have it, they have a spare, or 12 thanks to the Spider-Verse. They could simply make a live-action Miles Morales and then use him in all the other films. He could pop up in Morbius. He could pop up in Venom and stuff like that and give his own franchise and build from there. They leave Peter Parker for the MCU. They focus on Miles Morales. Now, the character is proven to be very popular in both animation and video games and comics too, I think. So why not run with it? There's so many villains as part of the Sony IP that they could easily split them between the two franchises without ever overlapping, or they could just make multiple versions. The only reason not to do this, and this might be their reasoning, but I don't know, is that they're afraid that if they put out a Miles Morales movie, it may not do as well as a Spider-Man standalone movie, and that it may hurt the brand for the Spider-Verse films, and they want to get one more Spider-Verse movie out there. So maybe they'll do it after. Yes, Sony has the rights to Morales. They're the ones that do the Spider-Verse movies. And he's the lead in those. All right. Second idea. Second idea would be to lean into the villains full force. I mean, just stop trying to make anti-heroes and just make movies where the leads are protagonists, but still bad guys. No one confused with John Wick as a hero just because you could identify with his motivations. John Wick was still a killer, killing thousands of people because his dog got killed and his car got stolen. I mean, when you think about it that way, it's absolutely a ludicrous idea, but every single one of us goes, they killed his dog? Kill everybody! Just kill them all! We do that, and we understand it. But it doesn't make John Wick a hero. But we get it. So do a Sinister Six movie from the Sinister Six team's perspective. Follow them coming together, planning a heist, a big heist, against some powerful entity, whatever. And then when they go to pull it off, you could conceivably have a shadowy figure that keeps stopping them or getting in their way. Kind of like if you told Die Hard from Hans Gruber's point of view, you know, and the John McClane character is more like the shark in Jaws and just kind of messes up things. You never, you know, and if it is Spider-Man, you never have to see who he is. You don't have to say, oh, it's Peter Parker. It's this, it's that. You just have a version of Spider-Man stopping them. And you never see who Spider-Man is. It's a Sinister Six movie. And if you do that, you could then lean into some of the other characters like Black Cat. What if Black Cat was still a thief and she broke in and stole from Silvermane? And suddenly you have his entire organization going after him, going after her. So you have this whole hunt thing. You've got all this stuff going on. But yeah, just a ton of action. Black Cat fighting all these people. And again, you keep them being who they are. So yeah, I think that's another good idea. Okay, what did I miss in chat? Ed says, didn't they say Kraven was going to be a hunter, but instead like a FEMA guy, a PETA guy? That sounds familiar, but I can't say for sure. I love Kraven. Don't make him a hippie. Yeah, I hope not. John Wick is better written than most comic book movies. It is. John Wick is actually a very good movie. And they really should hire that team to do a movie, a superhero movie. Marvel or DC should be hiring him. Dan didn't confirm it, but I swear I heard that, but could have just been internet clickbait. Yeah, again, that sounds familiar, but I don't have verification for that. So, give me 1 sec, folks. I need a drink. Okay. Third idea. Now, this one may be the toughest, but you find yourself a singular visionary like Kevin Feige or what DC hopes James Gunn's going to be. And once you find that person, then you break away from Marvel Studios. You hire yourself a new Peter Parker and you relaunch the whole thing with a new movie and then build other characters around them. Now, you probably won't make the $1.9 billion of No Way Home, but with a good writer, director, star, you could get back up to that $1 billion range easily enough. And then, you know, then you start Venom and you have, you know, in Morbius and Madam Web, you do those spin-off movies, but you have a Spider-Man to tie it into. You have a whole universe to build it around. And you can't do it with Tom Holland. You have to separate it because even if they said, oh, he's now in this universe, the problem is that everybody, the general audience, Tom Holland, Tony Stark, you know, or Peter Parker, Tony Stark, all those are connected now. You have to separate that. Now, I think this is the best way for Sony to take control of their IP, but I don't see them doing it. This is a high risk, high reward approach, and I don't think they're in that ballpark right now. You know, this is you either hit a home run or you strike out type of move, because if you get the wrong visionary, like say DC did with Zack Snyder, then you end up with, deteriorating returns. So, yeah. Let's see. JD says, why wouldn't they do a Spider-Woman movie before a Madam Web movie? Not sure. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. They have done a few, but Deadpool is the most notable on the bunch. Ed says, that's what I was thinking, JD. Spider-Man would have been potential. Yeah. You know what's funny, though, is if you're outside of comics and you say, oh, it's a Spider-Woman movie, and they're like, I have seen people go, really? They're just going to put woman after that and do another movie? Why don't they do something original? So, Snyder versus Hogwash. Triple B's homie's got his beer. Good for you, man. All right. Let's move on to my fourth idea. The fourth idea is a bit of a retrofit. What you do is you show footage from No Way Home, and you establish that someone from the Sony films, an older Professor Lee type character, also went through the portals and was at the Statue of Liberty during the fight. That person then is able to collect a blood sample from one of the Spider-Men. You don't necessarily say which one. That way you can keep it vague. But all of them did get pretty beaten up, and I think all of them were bleeding at one point or another. And then you return home, or he's returned home, and at the end, with the blood sample, he then creates a clone based off of the sample, and you end up with a Spider-Man that is tied to the MCU but isn't. You name him Ben Reilly. You have the Professor guy be Miles Warren or the Jackal, and you never make it 100% clear which Spider-Man the blood came from. Then you have a Spider-Man for the Sonyverse while continuing Tom Holland in the MCU. You then have a symbiote realize something like this has happened, and you tie Eddie Brock Venom into the movie. You make big money. Then connect the other characters with the new Spider-Man, or you even call him the Scarlet Spider, whatever you want to do with that. But the idea is that you can cast somebody new, somebody that looks like they could be a cross between Tom Holland and Tobey Maguire or something. There's probably an actor out there that looks like it's a merge of those two or those three. Maybe it's blood samples from all three of them, and they merge them together to make a clone. Who knows? Then you got the choice if you want to do the artificial web fluid or the actual organic web fluid. So you got options there. All right, let's do the final one. And I'm going to be honest here. This is probably the most out there one. But I also think it's my favorite because it gives us something completely different and new, something we don't currently have. So you have Sony make a deal with Marvel that allows Marvel to use any of the Spider-Man characters in their films for a certain percentage depending upon screen time, etc. So, so you have a villain, he's on screen maybe 25 minutes in the movie, you get this percentage of the film, etc. Now, in exchange, Marvel allows Sony to use any characters from the 2099 universe. Then Sony builds a futuristic cyberpunk 2099 universe starting around Miguel O'Hara as Spider-Man 2099, and then you can start adding other characters. Doom 2099, Ghost Rider, Hulk, Punisher, Ravage 2099. There's also 2099 X-Men and Fantastic Four. There's Daredevil, there's Moon Knight. There's a version of S.H.I.E.L.D. You can build your own universe of characters, but in this cyberpunk superhero universe, which is separate from the MCU, and it's something so unique compared to everything else out there. When you look at it, people confuse the MCU and the DCU, and the general audience. It's like, wait, is he in the Batman universe or is he in the Iron Man universe? That type of thing. This would give you something wholly unique, and every movie would have a 2099 tag on it, so everybody would know, oh, this is that special future universe. So I think that would be one of the most unique ways to do it. Now, these are all fairly out there ideas, except for maybe the Miles Morales one. It would take Sony a lot of guts to pull the trigger. But what they're currently doing is not working. No one should have greenlit a Madam Web movie. The MCU worked because they started small, they focused on good actors, made good movies, then built up on that foundation. You have to be willing to do the work, not just throwing things against the wall and seeing what sticks. Shortcuts don't work, and you really need good actors to lead universe. Marvel did it right, and now everyone wants to jump in to the successful part without taking the risk part. Marvel took a gamble on an actor with a bad reputation, Robert Downey Jr., and another who was already part of a failed franchise, Chris Evans, and a complete newcomer in Chris Hemsworth. Then they picked directors that made sense. Jon Favreau, he hadn't done a lot, but he had done The Jungle Book, and he had started, Elf. He had started showing his ability, but he also had done the movie Swingers, and that is such a Tony Stark style feel to a movie. He understood a complicated person like Tony Stark. When they went to go do a period war movie like Captain America, they went to Joe Johnston, who had made one of the best period superhero movies ever in The Rocketeer. And when they went to go make something about Asgard, they got Kenneth Branagh, who excelled at Shakespeare. This all makes sense. Sony and, they've been kind of digging at the bottom of the barrel, just scraping up directors and stuff and finding people that, we'll give them a shot. We'll give them a shot. Marvel did it right, and that's really what they need to do. They need to look at how Marvel started, not everybody wants to jump to the Avengers point. They don't want to do the Iron Man, the Hulk, the Thor, the Captain America. They don't want to do the work. So, all right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll do some collectibles and finish up the show. So, back in just a moment.
Did you know that every Experience show, including some exclusive content, streams on Twitch? Check it out, twitch.tv/the_EXP. Or just scan that QR code.
Comic Collectibles is a pretty straightforward show. You got Rex here, he sells the comics, and you got Rock and Robbie, he knows about the comics. And finally, John, no one really knows what John does. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's a great guy, but he just keeps showing up. Come to think of it, I don't even really know how he gets in here. Anyway, awesome comics, rare books, rarer signatures, slabbed books, and amazing cover sketches by Ken Hazer and others. Simple formula, you want the comics, you buy the comics. To sum up, Rex sells the comics, Robbie knows the comics, and John, who might possibly be a ghost. I mean, seriously, has anyone ever seen him show up or leave? Comic Collectibles with Rex and John, Mondays from 6 to 8 Eastern on The Experience. Comic Culture and Sales.
My name is Mark Weiss, and I am the founder and president of an organization called Comic Books for Kids. 6 years ago this month, we embarked on a journey of passion and heart. Our goal was to make a difference for children in hospitals and cancer centers. We want to thank our friends for allowing us their support and for providing us with the means to make so many happy with their gracious give to us.
Programming on the EXP is made possible by viewers like you, or your local comic shop, or that Kickstarter you backed, or the publisher you like, or comic industry professionals who want to share a message with the world. Really, anyone who wants to advertise with us can. If you're interested in seeing a product you know and love, or are creating, or are publishing, or are involved with, advertised here on The Experience, and having your message shared with our viewers, please reach out by scanning the QR code below or visiting our website and using the contact form.
everybody, welcome back. Remember to stick around. We've got What's in the Box, we've got the Geek Chat, and SketchUp tonight. And also tomorrow, we've got Original Art Experience and Friday Night Live. And then Saturday, we have our new show, Jam City Comics. So you want to check all that out. By the way, I missed it, but Preston's comment up there is brilliant. He says that he also takes Doc Ock's blood, and we end up with the Superior Spider-Man. That, too, would be an interesting storyline, especially if they make a regular Spider-Man and a Superior Spider-Man. There's a lot of potential there. So, all right, let's do our collectibles. I did some based off of the Sony movies, so let's jump in. Of course, we've got the first appearance of Madam Web in Amazing Spider-Man's 2010 from 1980. High end on this is $90. Mid's $25, low is $9. So I remember that cover. I might actually have that one. So, okay, then next up we have the second appearance of Madam Web. High end on this is $20, mid is $8, low is $2, and this, of course, is Amazing Spider-Man 216. Then we go to the first appearance of Maddie Franklin, of course, one of the Spider-Men that we see in the film, or Spider-Women that we see in the film. This is Amazing Spider-Man number 5 when they renumbered it in 1999. High end on this is 12, mid is 3, low is 1. Amazing Spider-Man 637 when they went back to the legacy numbering. This is the death of the first Madam Web in 2010. High on this is 40, mid is 12, low end is 4. And Craven looks like he's had better days there. Just got to say. Amazing Spider-Man number 30 from 2001. This, of course, was the Volume 2. First appearance of Ezekiel Sims, who also appears in Madam Web. High end on this is 30, mid is 9, low is 3. Amazing Spider-Man number 101 from 1971 was the first appearance of Morbius. High end on this one is $1,300. Mid is $460, low is $130. Yep, the Pale Vampire is worth some money. First appearance of Martine Bancroft, his love of his life. Amazing Spider-Man number 1 or 2. High end on this is $135, mid is $40, low end is $15. It's also the 6-armed Spider-Man one. Vampire Tales number 1. Now, this is the first Morbius solo story from 1973. There is also a first Morbius comic story. I didn't bother to grab that one, but this is his first solo story. It's in the Vampire Tales magazine from 1973. Mid is 70, high is 70, mid is 15, low is 5. Then, of course, this cover. I like Steve Ditko's art, but that Spider-Man looks rough. That's a rough, pudgy Spider-Man. Amazing Spider-Man number 50 from 1964. The first appearance of Kraven the Hunter. High end on this is $3,400. Mid is $1,400. Low end, $370. Also introduced in it is the Chameleon, who is Kraven's brother and will be appearing in the Kraven movie. And, of course, we get Web of Spider-Man number 31 from 1987. This is the first part of one of the best Kraven story, the best Kraven story, one of the best Spider-Man stories, Kraven's Last Hunt. High end on this is $10. Mid is 5, low is 2. This was a 6-part series that ran through multiple Spider-Man books, whether it was Web of Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man, Peter Parker, and they eventually collected it into a trade. And finally, that was the final one. Okay. And since I have a 9.8 of the first Morbius, nice. About 10 other copies. That may be why I like the movie. So you are definitely a Morbius fan. Wow. So, interesting note, if you are somebody who liked J. Michael Straczynski's run on Spider-Man and the introduction of Ezekiel and Moreland and that group of that idea of the spider totems and stuff like that, there is a novel out there, a Spider-Man novel written by Jim Butcher. Jim Butcher is known for writing the Dresden Files, but he wrote this novel. It's available both in print and audible or audio. I listened to it. It is a very good book. It picks up from that setup, and it's very cool. I liked it a lot, and I didn't realize how much it makes sense for Jim Butcher to write Spider-Man, because Harry Dresden's a wizard. So you think, well, he should be writing Doctor Strange, right? No. Harry Dresden's a wizard, but he's also a guy who has nothing but bad luck. Bad things always happen to him. It always gets worse and worse. He is very much Spider-Man. If you merged Peter Parker and Stephen Strange together into one character, it's Harry Dresden. And by the way, I highly recommend the Dresden File books. I recommend them on Audible. They're read by James Marsters, the guy that played Spike on Buffy. And he is probably the best narrator I've ever listened to. So, all right, guys. So that's going to wrap it up for the day. Thanks for tuning in. I will be on Pop Go the Writers Sunday with Jim. We're going to talk about The Bad Batch. I'm 2 of 4 episodes in, and I'm struggling with it, but we'll talk about it. Then next week I'll be back to do the news on Tuesday, and with another big show on Thursday. Yeah, Thursday. Yeah. Have a great weekend, everybody. Oh, Warhammer fans or people trying to get into Warhammer, this weekend at all the Warhammer and Games Workshops stores, starting Saturday, they will be giving away a Warhammer figure similar to this one. It's the same line, but it's slightly different. But they will be giving these away, and all you have to do is go in and ask for it. So if you want to get your toes into the Warhammer universe, check it out. So have a good one. We will see you all next week. Stick around for What's in the Box, Geek Chat, Sketch Up. So hit that like button on your way out, and I will see you later.